The council chamber was silent. High Chancellor Valer's voice carried with the practiced calm of a man who believed every word he spoke was law. His pale, ridged face was lit by the glow of the holographic seals circling his form. Effective immediately, he intoned, all human offspring of 12 standard years are to be transferred to designated galactic academies. There, they will be educated in the virtues of unity and obedience. This is not a request. It is an integration directive. The words hung in the air like a sentence passed. Across the chamber, the delegates of Earth sat frozen. A few shifted uncomfortably in their seats, eyes darting between each other, searching for courage in their neighbors' silence. The vast windows beyond them looked out over New Geneva, towers gleaming, rivers cutting through the city like veins. Above it all, the gateway hung in orbit, a shimmering ring of light that had once symbolized hope. Now it loomed like a shackle. Captain Elias Rourke stood near the chamber's edge, hands clasped behind his back, the Terran Defense Fleet insignia glinting on his shoulder. Years of service had taught him to keep his face unreadable, but his knuckles were whitening against his palms. Taxes he had endured, quotas he had tolerated. But this, taking their children, that was conquest disguised as diplomacy. One of Earth's senior delegates, Councillor Merrick, found his voice. High Chancellor, with respect, this directive violates every charter signed at the time of our membership. Our people, our families, will not accept. Valer's narrow eyes blinked once, slowly. Councillor Merrick, your membership exists at the Council's pleasure. Your species has benefited from trade routes, technologies, and defense you could never have achieved alone. You remain indebted. Integration is the price of progress. A murmur rippled across the human side of the chamber. Indebted. The word stung more than the demand itself. Elias saw fists clench, jaws tighten. Councillor Lien, younger, fire in her tone, stood. You speak of progress, Chancellor, but what you demand is abduction. No parent will surrender their child to an alien regime. Valer leaned forward, his long fingers folding. Then your parents will learn obedience. Defiance carries consequences. His tone was soft, but the threat filled the room like smoke. Elias exhaled slowly through his nose, keeping his expression neutral. Consequences. He had heard that word too many times in the last decade. It always meant something extracted, something taken, something lost. The Chancellor rose, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. You have 5 Terran days to begin compliance. Our fleets already wait at your system's edge to assist in collection. Refusal will not be tolerated. With that, the projection flickered, the seals dissolved, and the chamber was left in silence so heavy it threatened to crush the delegates where they sat. For several moments, no one moved. Then the chamber erupted. Shouts, protests, frantic arguments filled the air. Some demanded resistance, voices trembling with fury. Others cried for caution, reminding all of the firepower the Galactic Council could unleash with a single command. Elias stayed where he was, watching. His gaze flicked to the holoscreen above the table, where the orbital feed displayed the gateway, a perfect circle of silver and blue fire, humming with the power to open paths to 1,000 worlds. The same structure that had delivered ambassadors and trade ships was now the Council's leash. He thought of his sister back in the northern provinces, her daughter just turning 11. 1 year away. He imagined her small hand clinging to her mother's, torn away by soldiers in pale armor. His jaw tightened until it hurt. Councillor Merrick slammed his fist against the desk. We must not provoke them further. Earth cannot stand against the fleets they hold in orbit. Better to negotiate, perhaps lessen the terms, appeal to reason. Lien cut across him. Reason? You saw it yourself. There is none left to appeal to. If we yield our children, we yield everything. There will be no Earth, only a hollow colony of their design. Elias shifted his weight, stepping forward. The councillors quieted as he spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, measured, but carried the steel of command. Councillors, we can debate until the last hour, but the truth stands. They will not stop. They have taken resources, sovereignty, dignity. Now they come for our bloodline. If we yield, There will be no end to what they demand next. A few heads nodded reluctantly. Others looked away, unwilling to face the truth. Merrick sneered faintly. Easy for a soldier to say. You do not weigh the cost of annihilation. Elias met his eyes, unblinking. I weigh the cost of slavery. And I know which cost humanity can endure longer. The chamber fell silent again. The weight of his words pressed against every ear. At length, the council chair called for adjournment, her voice strained. We will reconvene tomorrow. Until then, consider what you are willing to sacrifice. Session dismissed. Delegates filed out, some muttering, some pale with fear. Lien brushed past Elias, her expression a storm of determination. They've gone too far, she said quietly. Even the cautious ones know it now. Elias inclined his head. Knowing it is not the same as acting. She gave a bitter smile. Then perhaps the acting will fall to you. He didn't answer, only watched her leave. Alone for a moment, Elias turned once more toward the window. The gateway shimmered above the planet, its endless energy coils pulsing with borrowed power. Once it had been humanity's pride. Now it was a chain fastened around Earth's neck. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Worn eyes, scar along his jaw, the face of a man who had spent his life defending a home that was slowly being stolen piece by piece. He thought again of his niece. Of every child whose future was now marked for erasure. His hands clenched behind his back until his nails dug into his palms. Oh, this was the line. The Terran Council chamber had always been a place of argument, but never like this. Overnight, New Geneva's capital block had filled with protesters, their chants echoing through the streets. Parents held signs demanding the council reject the decree. Others carried placards warning against provoking war. Fear and fury tangled in every corner of the city. Inside, the chamber shook with the same division. They will crush us if we resist, Councillor Merrick thundered, his voice breaking against the curved walls. His gray beard trembled as he slammed his hand on the table. Look outside, our fleets number dozens. There's number thousands. Survival requires compromise. Councillor Lien shot to her feet, eyes blazing. Compromise ends where they reach for our children. Merrick, you would sign away our blood for the illusion of peace. Merrick sneered. And you would gamble with extinction. The shouting spread. Delegates leaned forward, waving documents, hurling accusations across the chamber. The air tasted of panic, sharp and metallic. At the edge of the room, Elias Rourke listened in silence. He had stood watch in dozens of tense councils, but this was different. This was the kind of fracture that broke nations. He studied the faces of the delegates, some weary, some defiant, some already beaten. He wondered how many would still stand if the fleets on the horizon lit their weapons tomorrow. The chamber doors parted with a hiss, cutting through the noise. A tall holographic figure flickered into being. High Chancellor Vaylor, spectral and severe, scales of light crawling across his form. The voices died instantly. I see, Vaylor began, his tone dripping with disdain, that even in compliance, humans choose disorder. How predictable. His alien eyes scanned the room, unhurried, as if he observed insects crawling over a stone. Understand this clearly. You were admitted to the council not as equals, but as wards. You were uplifted, protected, and fed. And still you gnash at the hand that spared you from obscurity. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. Vaylor's gaze sharpened. Do not mistake tolerance for weakness. Defiance will be answered with correction. Elias stepped forward before he realized he was moving. The words left his mouth steady, though his chest burned with controlled fury. And what correction do you name when you come for our children, Chancellor? Re-education. Or erasure? The room froze. No one addressed the Chancellor like that. Vaylor's head tilted, a predator studying prey that had dared bare its teeth. Captain Rourke, he said softly. Yes. I have read of you. Decorated in your defense fleet, survivor of 3 border conflicts. You should know better than to tempt annihilation. Elias didn't flinch. I know that if we give you what you ask, Annihilation will come anyway. Slowly, quietly, until there is nothing left of us but servants. The hologram's light wavered faintly as Vaylor leaned closer. You speak boldly for a soldier. But your leaders will learn pragmatism, or they will learn ruin. 5 days, Captain. Do not waste them. The image dissolved, leaving the chamber in oppressive silence. Lien's voice broke first, quieter but burning. You heard him. There is no partnership left here, only domination. Merrick turned on Elias, his face red. You've doomed us with that outburst. Do you think words of defiance frighten them? They laugh at our pride while their fleets sharpen blades above our skies. Elias met his anger with calm. Then perhaps it is time they learn that Earth has teeth. The chamber erupted again, but Elias had heard enough. He turned and walked out, boots striking the marble floor with deliberate weight. The corridors outside were lined with guards, their armor gleaming under sterile lights. Beyond the tall windows, the city's avenues pulsed with restless crowds. Chants rose faintly, a mixture of rage and fear. Elias walked past them and out to the terrace, where the sky stretched vast and heavy above the spires. A familiar voice called from behind him. Commander Imani Okoro, his second in command, caught up with him. Her dark eyes narrowed as she matched his stride. You just painted a target on your chest. Elias gave a short, humorless smile. It was already there the moment I wore the uniform. They'll push harder now, she warned. The Chancellor smelled defiance. He won't leave without proving a point. He stopped, leaning against the railing. Far above, the gateway glowed faintly against the night sky, its endless shimmer a wound in the darkness. They've been proving points for years, Elias said quietly. Taxing our mines, stripping our oceans, dictating our laws. But this is theft of our future. Imani folded her arms, her jaw tightening. The council's divided. Half of them are already broken by fear, the other half can't agree on how far to go. You expect them to back action? No, Elias answered. His eyes stayed fixed on the gateway. I expect them to talk until the 5th day, and then fold. That's what fear does. Imani studied him for a long moment. And you? He turned, finally meeting her gaze. I won't fold. Not for this. Something in his tone left no room for doubt. She exhaled slowly, then nodded. Then you'd better have a plan, Captain. Because when this council shatters, people will look to you. And if you act, you'd better be ready for the cost. That night, Elias returned to his quarters in the orbital defense wing. The city below gleamed with restless lights, protests still stirring in the avenues. He set his datapad on the table, scrolling through fleet reports, patrol readiness, orbital defenses, engineering updates. All of it inadequate against the weight of the Council's armada. But one file caught his eye. Gateway Protocols. Emergency Shutdown Procedures. He opened it, studying the lines of text that described how the station's core could be destabilized, severing the conduit permanently. Isolation. No trade. No travel. Cut off from the galaxy in an instant. His mind traced the possibilities. Stranded fleets, broken supply chains, Earth left alone in the void. It would be a leap into uncertainty, maybe even ruin. But ruin was better than slavery. The command center aboard Earth's orbital defense station hummed with subdued urgency. Monitors lit the walls, streams of data scrolling across them. Fleet positioning, power grids, gateway diagnostics. Officers spoke in low voices, the air heavy with anticipation. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the center, his presence a steady anchor in the storm gathering around them. Chief Engineer Tanaka set a data slate on the table, its projections casting pale blue light across their faces. You asked about shutdown protocols, Captain. These are the options. Diagrams of the gateway flickered into focus, a shimmering lattice of conduits and reactors. Tanaka pointed to the glowing core. There are 2 methods. The controlled sequence disables the field, leaves the structure intact but dormant. Reversible if Council authorities seize the system later. His tone hardened. The second option, Destabilization. Collapse the conduit. The gateway implodes. It will never function again. Silence pressed against the walls. Imani leaned forward, arms folded. What happens to anything mid-transit? Tanaka's mouth tightened. Destroyed. No survivors. The weight of it settled over the table. Elias's jaw set. And if we take no action? Tanaka shut off the projection. They'll use it as a highway straight into orbit. Every warship, every transport carrying troops, every collector they send for our children. Elias looked around the table, faces worn but resolute. Men and women who had sworn to defend Earth, now staring down the impossible. He spoke carefully, words measured like steps across ice. We sever the gateway, we're alone. No reinforcements. No trade. No allies. Imani's voice cut in, firm but low. We were already alone, Captain. We just pretended otherwise. Later, Elias walked the narrow corridor of the station, the steady vibration of reactors beneath his boots. The viewport stretched across his right, showing Earth's curve below, blue oceans, green continents lit by the soft glow of cities. He thought of the people down there, living their lives under the shadow of a decision none of them had chosen. He stopped as his wrist comm buzzed. The Chancellor's voice filled the corridor, broadcast from the chamber below. Humans of Terra. Your council delays, but time will not. In 3 days, we will collect what is owed. Do not resist our generosity, or you will taste correction. The message repeated across every channel. Elias's stomach turned at the word generosity. He moved on, stepping into the comms room where Lien waited, her expression sharpened by sleepless hours. They've begun the countdown, she said. Parents are flooding the streets, demanding we protect their children. Others beg us to yield, terrified of bombardment. The council is paralyzed. Of course they are, Elias replied. He took a seat opposite her. Half of them think surrender buys time. The other half know it only buys chains. Neither side is willing to commit. Lien studied him. And you? Have you committed? Elias didn't look away. I have. She leaned forward, voice low. You're planning to shut the gateway. He didn't answer directly, but the silence told her enough. Lien exhaled. If you do this, Captain, Earth will face isolation like it hasn't known in centuries. No medicine shipments, no star drives, no off-world support. We'll be trapped. Better trapped than broken, Elias said. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. My brother's boy is 12 next week. Do it, and I'll stand with you. That night, Elias found sleep impossible. He stood at the observation deck, the gateway gleaming above, its arcs alive with light. He remembered its first activation decades ago, when humanity believed the galaxy welcomed them as equals. He had been a younger officer then, full of hope. The gateway had seemed like a doorway to endless promise. Now it pulsed like a wound. Imani joined him, silent for a while before speaking. Do you ever think we were fools to join them? Elias shook his head. We weren't fools. We wanted connection. They just wanted control. And when the connection burns, then we stand on our own, he said. It's what we've always done. She gave a slow nod. Then say the word, and I'll carry it to the cruise. Elias's eyes stayed on the arc of light above. Not yet. When it happens, it must be swift. The Council will hesitate until the last hour. That's when we strike. The next day, the Terran Council reconvened. The chamber stank of exhaustion, hollow eyes, tense shoulders, papers strewn across desks. The countdown broadcast by the Chancellor had infected every word. Marek's voice broke through the murmurs. We cannot withstand their fleets. Surrender ensures survival. Resistance ensures ruin. History will not forgive reckless pride. Lien rose immediately, fire in her voice. History will not forgive cowardice. Surrender our children, and we surrender humanity itself. The chamber roared with arguments, splitting the room in two. Elias stood silent, watching, knowing the divide would never heal in time. The council would break itself on indecision. When the chair finally called adjournment, Elias left without a word. He had what he needed, proof that no leadership remained strong enough to act. In the war room later, he faced his officers. Screens showed fleet formations, shield generators, the gateway glowing like a predator's eye. Elias's voice carried the certainty of a man who had chosen his path. The council will yield. They always do. But we won't. 3 days from now, when the Chancellor arrives to collect his tribute, he'll find Earth has closed its gates. Permanently. Imani gave the order to seal the room. Tanaka nodded grimly, already pulling up shutdown codes. Other officers exchanged glances, fear sharp in their eyes, but beneath it, relief. At last, a decision. Elias continued. This isn't survival. Not yet. It's defiance. It buys us time, maybe nothing more. But we will not hand over our children. We will not kneel. The words echoed through the chamber, settling into every heart like steel. The Chancellor's fleet arrived as predicted, sliding into orbit with mechanical precision. Rows of silver-black vessels gleamed against the curve of Earth, their hulls adorned with the insignia of the Council. The sight was calculated, a reminder of how small Earth was compared to the empire that ruled the stars. Inside the orbital defense station, alarms pulsed a muted red glow. The command deck bristled with tension. Officers leaned over consoles, reading telemetry reports as the hostile fleet anchored in high orbit. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the central console, arms folded behind his back. His voice was steady when he asked, "Status of their transmission?" Lien, her face drawn but resolute, replied, "Incoming now." The hollow projector bloomed to life. The Chancellor's image filled the room, tall, severe, eyes like polished obsidian. His voice resonated with authority sharpened over centuries of conquest. "People of Terra," he began, his tone smooth but dripping with disdain. "The day has arrived. Present what is owed. Do not delay. Your resistance only diminishes what little worth you possess." Elias kept his expression controlled. "Chancellor, the Council has heard your demands. But Earth has no tribute to offer." The room froze. No one breathed. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "Do you presume defiance, human?" Elias answered without hesitation. "I speak plainly. The gateway is closed to you." A ripple of shock passed through his officers, even though they had already committed. Saying it aloud made the act real, irreversible. The Chancellor leaned forward, features distorting with contempt. "You misunderstand your position. The gateway is not yours. It belongs to the Council. It exists by our mercy. You will." The transmission cut abruptly. Imani's fingers danced across her console. "Signal jammed on our end, Captain. They won't dictate terms on our deck." A murmur of approval swept the room, quiet but fierce. Below them, in the heart of the station, Tanaka and his engineering crews swarmed the reactor chamber. Conduits hissed with steam as technicians rerouted power, their hands moving quickly over glowing interfaces. Tanaka barked orders above the roar. "Stabilizers offline. Secondary relays disconnected. Bring the core to critical thresholds on my mark." The gateway loomed beyond the station's viewports, its vast ring alive with energy. Light surged along its arcs, casting eerie shadows across the chamber walls. 4 decades, it had been a marvel, a lifeline. Now it was a weapon waiting to be dismantled. Imani entered the chamber, helmet clipped at her belt. "Tanaka, how long?" He glanced at his readouts. "Minutes, maybe less. Once I trigger destabilization, the chain reaction won't stop. You sure your captain wants the point of no return?" Imani's jaw set. "He doesn't want it. He needs it. Do it." On the command deck, enemy ships shifted formation. Lien read the telemetry aloud. "They're advancing. Looks like they expected compliance. Escorts moving toward the surface. Intercept course?" Elias asked. "Negative. They're headed for the planetary capital. They want to collect in person. Elias's voice was quiet but deadly firm. Then they'll find nothing to collect. He tapped his comm. Tanaka, report. The engineer's voice crackled back, strained. Final stages now. You'll feel the surge when the collapse begins. No turning back after that. Understood, Elias said. He turned to his crew. Brace for consequences. The gateway flared suddenly, brighter than ever before. Energy arcs rippled outward like lightning, streaking across the void. The enemy fleet halted, uncertain. On one of the Council flagships, the Chancellor's second-in-command shouted warnings. Energy surge detected. The Terrans are tampering with the conduit. The Chancellor rose, his voice a snarl. Fools! Shut it down remotely. Technicians scrambled, but the gateway ignored their commands. Locks Earth had embedded during its construction had long remained unnoticed, dormant, until now. Humanity's engineers had hidden a kill switch no Council scanner ever detected. Inside the station, the deck shuddered. Lights flickered as power drained into the gateway's collapsing core. Containment dropping. Tanaka's voice roared over comms. It's happening. Through the viewport, Elias watched the impossible. The gateway's surface writhed like liquid metal, bending inward as if some unseen hand twisted the ring upon itself. Energy screamed across the spectrum, blinding sensors. Lien gripped the railing. It's tearing itself apart. Imani stepped closer, voice hushed but fierce. Then let it tear. The Chancellor's fleet panicked. Ships pulled back from the gateway, shields flaring as fragments of energy lashed at their hulls. One vessel too close disintegrated instantly, swallowed by a surge of raw power. On the flagship, the Chancellor raged. They dare destroy a Council conduit? This is war. Bring weapons to bear, target their station, burn it down. His crew hesitated, fear plain in their movements. They had seen rebellions crushed before. They had never seen a species willingly cut itself off from the galaxy. Elias steadied himself against the trembling deck. His voice carried over the comms. This is Captain Rourke of Terra Defense. The gateway is no longer yours to exploit. Earth stands free. The final collapse began. The gateway imploded, arcs snapping inward. For a heartbeat, the void shone brighter than a sun. Then came silence, absolute and immense. Where the gateway had been, nothing remained. Not even fragments. Cheers erupted across the command deck, raw and unrestrained. Some officers wept openly. Others embraced. For the first time in generations, Earth was unbound. But Elias did not celebrate. He kept his eyes on the enemy fleet, knowing the moment was not triumph but beginning. Sure enough, the Chancellor's image returned. Flickering across the comm his fury was palpable, voice shaking with venom. You insignificant creatures. You believe isolation will protect you? You have condemned yourselves. No fleet will come to your aid. No medicine, no trade, no mercy. You will starve in the dark, and when the time is ripe, we will return, not to collect tribute, but to erase you. The feed cut before Elias could respond. The deck quieted again, jubilation fading to the weight of his words. Imani spoke first. They'll regroup. They'll strike harder. Yes, Elias said. But they'll do it without a highway straight into our skies. They'll come the long way, and that gives us time. Lien's gaze was steady. Time for what? Elias finally looked away from the stars, his voice low but filled with purpose. Time to prepare. Time to remind them why humanity survives where others fall. The fleet above slowly retreated, their formation broken, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. They had expected submission, not defiance. For now, they withdrew. But the promise of return hung heavy in the void. The gateway was gone, but its absence hung heavier than its presence ever had. Earth orbited in silence, cut off from the lattice of interstellar travel that had threaded through its skies for decades. No more fleets would surge through in an instant, but no more convoys of trade either. Humanity had severed the artery that tied it to the galaxy. Now it had to decide whether that sacrifice meant survival or slow ruin. In the orbital station's council chamber, the lights were dimmed, the air thick with exhaustion. The officers and civilian envoys who had witnessed the implosion gathered around a central table. Elias Rourke stood at the head. He looked worn, his uniform creased from days without rest, but his eyes were steady. "We have achieved what we set out to do," he began. "The Council cannot reach us quickly. But we must assume they will not accept this insult quietly. Their fleets will come the long way. It will take years, perhaps decades. That is the time we've bought." Dr. Imani leaned forward, her voice edged with urgency. "Years are nothing if we don't use them. The blockade of knowledge and medicine will hit us harder than any fleet. We have to begin rebuilding our independence, scientific, agricultural, defensive. Otherwise we will collapse before they even return." Lien shifted in her seat, quiet until now. "And morale. The people celebrated when the gateway fell, yes. But already, fear is setting in. They know we've been severed from everything we relied on. We need to show them that this isn't the end, it's the beginning." Elias nodded. "Then that's our course. We stop waiting for alien scraps. We become self-sufficient. When the Council returns, they will find not a starving colony, but a world ready to meet them." In the days that followed, Earth moved with frantic purpose. Factories that had once churned out consumer luxuries were converted to arms foundries. Engineers tore apart alien tech they had once been forbidden to touch, reverse engineering its secrets. Fields outside old megacities bloomed again as hydroponic towers rose skyward, feeding millions without imports. It was messy, uneven, and often desperate. But it was human. People threw themselves into the work because for the first time in living memory, they were not laboring for tribute, they were laboring for themselves. Elias visited one of the research hangars where Tanaka's engineers had dismantled a captured Council frigate. The ship's hull was propped open, wires hanging like veins from exposed panels. "Not built for us," Tanaka muttered, wiping oil from his brow. "Half these systems require Council alloys we don't have. The rest are coded with encryption we're still trying to crack." "Can we make it work?" Elias asked. Tanaka gave a crooked smile. "Making things work that shouldn't is what humans do best. Give me time. We'll fly one of their ships under our flag before this is over." Imani entered behind Elias, carrying data slates. "Don't celebrate yet. Every breakthrough takes resources. Mining colonies are cut off. No new shipments of rare metals. We'll need substitutes or new supply lines from the system itself." Elias studied the gutted ship. "Then we dig. Mars, the Belt, even the moons. If the Council built empires across the stars, we can build one here, our way." On Earth, ordinary citizens felt the change too. Streets once lined with Council patrols were now patrolled by local militias. Schools began teaching history not from alien-approved texts, but from Earth's own past: resistance, resilience, revolutions. Lien oversaw broadcasts that went out daily, calming fears and stoking pride. She spoke not as an officer, but as a human among humans. "We were told we were too small to stand on our own, that we needed them to feed us, to protect us, to guide us. But we have cut the chain ourselves. Now we choose our path, not as subjects, as free people." Her words traveled across the planet, echoing in homes, in shelters, in workshops where tired hands lifted a little steadier at her voice. But freedom carried weight. One evening, Elias stood at the viewport, watching Earth's curve against the stars. Lien joined him, carrying 2 mugs of bitter coffee. "You don't look like a man celebrating victory," she said quietly. He took the mug, grateful for its warmth. "Because I know what's coming. The Council doesn't forgive humiliation. They'll send a fleet when they can. Bigger than anything we've faced." "Then why don't you regret it?" she asked. Elias's gaze didn't waver. "Because if we hadn't acted, we'd still be kneeling. At least this way, we stand, even if it kills us." Lien sipped her coffee, considering his words. "Standing isn't nothing. Sometimes it's everything. Months passed. The fear of isolation did not vanish, but it hardened into resolve. Children grew up learning to farm, to code, to fight. Scientists trained apprentices instead of shipping talent off-world. Humanity adapted, not because it was easy, but because it had no choice. Then came the first reports. Scouts on the far edges of the solar system detected disturbances. Council probes, slow and distant, but unmistakable. The galaxy had not forgotten Earth. In the war room, Elias gathered his core officers. The projection showed faint signals creeping inward. "They're testing the waters," Imani said. "Probes today, maybe a cruiser in a year, maybe more. They'll come." Elias folded his arms. "Then we'll be ready. Not just with weapons, but with unity. They thought they could break us by cutting us off. Instead, they forced us to remember who we are." Tanaka grinned fiercely. "And by the time they arrive, maybe we'll have a few surprises of our own." That night, Earth lit up with a coordinated broadcast, the largest since the Gateway's implosion. Elias himself addressed the planet. "Citizens of Earth," he said, voice echoing across continents. "We live in the shadow of giants. We cut the chain that bound us, and in doing so, we invited their wrath. They will come. They will try to reclaim what they lost. But when they arrive, they will not find servants waiting in fear. They will find a people who have remembered their strength. A people who bow to no one. Let them come. We will show them what it means to challenge humanity." Cheers erupted in city squares, in farms, in orbital colonies. Across the world, humanity felt something it had not felt in centuries. Not dread, but determination. At the edge of the system, the stars glittered cold and distant. Somewhere beyond, the Council prepared its reckoning. But Earth, scarred yet unbroken, no longer trembled at the thought.